Welcome everyone to the first webinar of the fall series of the Go-To meetings. Of Out2Lunch. Out2Lunch is short demonstrations of cool earth science tools brought to you by the ESIP Education Committee. ESIP is the Earth Science Information Partners, a national organization with over 120 members collaborating to advance the use of earth science data across society. My name is Margaret Mooney. I'm communicating from Madison, Wisconsin. I work at the Cooperative Institute for Meteorological Satellite Studies, and today I am delighted to introduce Joseph Kerski, who's going to present from ESRI on drought monitoring drought. So Joseph, I just transferred the screen to you. You should be able to start it. Great. We can see it.
All right. Greetings. All right. Thanks, Margaret. Greetings, folks. Joseph Kerski here, live from Colorado at the moment. And it's really good to be with you all. I have great respect for what the ESIP folks are doing, and I'm just happy and thrilled to be a part of it. Now, folks, this is a short demonstration of one of many ArcGIS Online web mapping applications. If you've got further questions about this, feel free to contact me here. I know you folks are all very much into spatial data and other kinds of data, and this data blog that I've got right here linked, Spatial Reserves, this is based on a book that I co-wrote that's on ESRI Press. And each week I update it with crowdsourcing, copyright, data quality, data sources, and so on. So if you are interested in any of these resources, go to spatialreserves.wordpress.com. So that's my data blog. But today we're going to really focus in on a couple of things that have to do with some of the work that I and my teammates are doing. And that is making sure that we produce tools that people can actually use to teach with, to do research with, and so on. So I think there's a lot of good reasons to use these live interactive web mapping tools. For example, some of them I have listed here. They're about 21st century issues: crime, energy, poverty, water quality, natural hazards, and so on. And your students, I know many of you are educators. I know Mike Jabot and other people on the call right now, but many of you are educators, and so you want your students to dig into real-world issues with real-world tools. That's exactly what we're going to focus on today, and develop those critical thinking skills and problem-solving skills with your students. And you researchers can also use these tools on local to global studies. Now, this tool that we're going to go into today, this Drought Tracker, is ArcGIS Online. It's an online collaborative web GIS where you can use, create, share maps, 3D scenes, apps, layers, analytics, and data. You have access inside ArcGIS Online to something called the Living Atlas of the World, which is hundreds and hundreds of curated, updated, authoritative data sets, spatial in nature. Okay, the Drought Tracker is one of those. So if we look at the Drought Tracker, before we do, just to let you know that it's actually a synthesis of 5 of these key indicators that you see right here. Also, it looks at drought impacts and also relies on local reports. Okay, so a little bit of additional information on there. Now let's go into the Drought Tracker right now because, again, it's a live web mapping application. So you've got a series of maps here. You've got trends. You've got a time sequence all across the bottom here going back to 2000. So you've got a 17-year history. Now, for example, right now I've got Boulder County, Colorado clicked on. You can see as I scroll through here, I know that we had a big flood event back in 2013. So if I go and scroll through the 2013 data, I can see that right around in September, I all of a sudden had 0% dry right after our big flood event here. And so you can do that for anywhere across the US. So this is a US tool as opposed to some other tools that we've got inside ArcGIS Online. You've got, again, the ability to interact with the map, with the graphs, and also with different regions by county, okay? So that is, I think, a really wonderful tool. In addition, if you go to this Learn More button, you get additional data going out to the U.S. Drought Monitor. And as you can see here, I'm not going to have time to go through every single one of these, but one of the things that you can do is you can actually go to some of the graphs in more detail outside of the Drought Tracker. You can also, if you go down to the GIS data, I know many of you are interested in GIS, and that's a good thing. I definitely am. But you can actually get the shape files for each one of these weeks, going back 17 years, week by week. So you've got no shortage of drought information in this tool. So back on the Drought Tracker itself, you can see that you can look at the drought situation right now, but you can also step back week by week and go to, well, what was it like in the middle of the summer here across the country? So you've got the ability to go into each county and look at more details, but you've also got this sort of regional/national look, and now we're looking at what was it like back in August? You know, what percent of the country was dry, moderate, severe, extreme, and exceptional? In terms of the variables that I had indicated on this presentation right here. Okay, so according to these measures, that is the drought. Now, I think it's important to bring out where the variables came from. Where did the data come from? Nowadays, folks, and this is the good thing about ArcGIS Online and other web-based GISs, anybody can create data. You, your students, your fellow researchers, anybody can put data up in that cloud. But by the same token, you got to be critical, right, about, okay, who created it? When was it created? Why can I trust it, or can I trust it? So all of those sorts of things, I think, are critical parts of the conversation about the Drought Tracker as well as other resources. I've only got about 3 more minutes here before we have questions and answers. So let me tap into just a couple of other things. First of all, the Drought Tracker is part of this, as I mentioned about 5 minutes ago, this living atlas of the world. This is not the end-all be-all, but it is a curated, authoritative set of content that you can actually tap into from local to global scale on a variety of different themes, as you can see here, and many more that are not even on the screen right now. Okay, so that's part of the living atlas of the world: drought, disasters, ecoregions, land cover, urban growth, population, energy, water, natural hazards, and so on. Okay. Also, what I wanted to point out is that this Drought Tracker is linked to this Earth Sciences portal, which I actually blogged about a few weeks ago. This this Sciences portal is a subset of the Living Atlas of the World. It's updated regularly, so this carousel of maps that's across here will change, but you can see the Drought Tracker is the first one on the screen. This Landsat app is a good one also. It allows you to examine different places around the world with different bands in the electromagnetic spectrum for Landsat data. Again, going back in time, but also looking at certain bands and why this band looks different from the geologic band. Okay, so fascinating set of resources. Last thing I wanted to mention here in the last 2 minutes is the essay that I wrote. Again, it's all linked to the same presentation on how would I teach and do research with the science portal in ArcGIS Online. Just a couple paragraphs with a link to the science portal. And last but not least, in this same presentation, I'm only going through about 10% of the presentation here with you all today, or all y'all, as they say in Texas, right, folks? But here are 10 more things you can do with ArcGIS Online in teaching and research. Other web mapping applications, including the Drought Tracker, but there are about 10 more that I list in this presentation. You can also make your own map. You can modify existing curricular resources and use the existing ones there. The Living Atlas, once again, adding multimedia, making story maps, collecting and analyzing field data. Okay, so there are a variety of things in here that you can examine in this same presentation. Okay, so all of those are based on ArcGIS Online, which is a web-based GIS. And now I am happy to take questions, comments, concerns, and so on. Thanks so much, folks.
Thanks, Joseph. Everyone should be unmuted now if anyone wants to ask a question, or you can type it in the chat box. So, Joseph, I want to clarify ArcGIS. How do people get that?
Right. So if you're at a university, there's a 99% chance that your university already has all of the ESRI tools. And so you could contact me if you don't know who the contact is at your university for you to be able to get an ArcGIS Online account. If you're in a nonprofit, we've got a nonprofit program. If you're in a K-12 school, we've got free ArcGIS Online subscriptions for that. The Drought Tracker and many other apps that I've got on this presentation, though, folks, there's no need to log into anything, okay? They're just open. You just use it. And they're all on the web, so you do need some decent bandwidth to run them, but you don't need any sort of specialized equipment. Lastly about that, I also encourage you folks to go to this site that I'll type into the chat box, developers.arcgis.com. In the developer site, and don't let the name scare you off, you don't have to be a coder or a developer to use it, but in there's a way for you to get a free sort of sandbox type of account. Okay, you can't geocode every water well in Kentucky with it, but you can do a fair amount with that developer account. Even if you have a university account or a school account or nonprofit account, I would still encourage you to get your own developer account, because that way you have your own sort of private, personal, one-person ArcGIS Online sandbox, if you will. So I encourage you to do that. Great question. All kinds of good people I know on this call. Very cool. Wow, Dr. Bray is on here, Shelley Olds. This is like a brain trust here.
Hi, Joseph.
Greetings.
Any other questions from anyone?
I think Eric Seaman has put a couple questions in the chat box.
What is the NIDIS data? Sorry, Eric, I'm not familiar with that.
National Integrated Drought Information System.
Well, it's possible. We could look at the metadata on the drought tracking tool and find out, but I think it's fairly likely, because when we went to the metadata, you've got this drought monitor at UNL, at University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I don't know if they're using the NIDIS data, but we could certainly find out. Good question. Always be critical of the data, right? Find out where it came from, especially in these days of crowdsourcing and citizen science.
Eric had another question earlier. If you could see that, if you can access the raw data.
Yes, absolutely. So if you go to the data tab after you go to the drought monitor and you go to the more data, the GIS data is all sitting out there. It goes back 17 years and you can get it week by week. You can download it, but you can also get it as a web mapping service. And why is that important? Because that is the actual URL that you can bring it right into something like ArcGIS Online without actually downloading it to your local computer. You know, downloading it is still around, but that was sort of the mode that many of us used for years because that was the only way to do it. But nowadays, you've got links to data services that you can actually put into something like ArcGIS Online and stream it right into that service, or stream that service right into the web mapping application. Good questions, folks. Keep them coming.
Well, I don't see anything else in the chat box, and no one else is speaking up. So I'm going to thank Joseph, and I can tell you that I'm going to go explore Hurricane Harvey, I think, and the flooding after it right now on the Drought Monitor. So thank you very much, and everyone, I'd like to tell you that there's 4 more Out to Lunch talks every other Wednesday this fall, and see you in 2 weeks. Thanks, Joseph. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, folks. Keep up the good work. Bye.
Thank you, Joseph.